right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar that we're doing alongside the American IV Association. I want to give them a giant thank you for inviting me, of course, to participate. So very grateful for those of you who are on who are choosing to spend some time with us today. So before we jump in, I want to do a quick A/B check. So if you guys can see my PowerPoint screen, see my webcam, and if you can hear me clearly, if you can just type yes in the question chat box, we will go ahead and get started. Okay, perfect. So it looks like we are good to go. Let me get this up and running. Give me 1 second. Let me just switch my webcam setting. Okay, perfect. All right, so first and foremost, thank you guys. Some of you may know me, some of you may not. For those of you guys who don't, my name is Audrey Neff. I'm the Director of Marketing for PatientNow, the PatientNow portfolio. We have a couple products, PatientNow, RX Photo, RX Marketing, and we have another product called Aesthetic Now. So what we're gonna really be focusing on today are some management, particularly marketing, and social media strategies for success. So as we all know, obviously the IV hydration therapy industry has been growing, I would say very, very rapidly in recent years. And given that it is cash pay medicine, we cannot neglect marketing. So a lot of us probably did come from the insurance side. Maybe we are, trying to be an entrepreneur. Maybe we want to build a better life for ourselves and our families, or just move out of the hospital world, whatever it may be. We all have different drivers and influencers that push us into a cash pay industry. What I want us to keep in mind is that when we are talking about cash pay medicine, it's elective. So consumers have choices, which means you have to market yourself, your business. It does not matter if you are a mobile IV hydration business, or you have a brick and mortar, or you offer other services. Marketing is a must. And not only is it a must, you have to do it the right way and have goals and objectives and hold people accountable. So we're going to be covering a lot of ground today in the hour that I have. And then for those of you guys who have questions, I think we had 2 questions that were asked during the registration process. So I'll get to those towards the end. But if you guys have questions during anything while I'm going through certain specific topics, just feel free to jot them in the question chat box, and I will probably just get to them as we go through, or whatever seems the most relevant. So hopefully that sounds like a plan for you guys. So let's set the stage why you can't neglect sales and marketing. Kind of touched on this. IV therapy services are elective. It's becoming a highly competitive market. Consumer awareness and demand is up, and we'll go through some Google search trends here recently, and the industry will continue to experience impressive growth. And I think something else to keep in mind is if we do it the right way now, it's going to be very financially beneficial to us in the future, because a lot of people are seeing the opportunities, I should say, in the cash pay medicine field, and it will look like a very different industry 12 months from now, 24 months from now, right? So we want to make sure that we do it right, because as the industry moves out of a growth phase and into more so a consolidation phase, which we're already seeing, if we want to start talking about, because the industry right now is pretty unconsolidated, right? We do have some franchises out there such as Liquivita, and businesses such as those that are coming in to consolidate the industry. As we start to see more of that consolidation, franchises, investment groups pour into this industry, it's going to make it a lot more difficult for us to compete if we didn't already have tightened up marketing processes and business processes in place today. So this is what I'm really going to be covering throughout today's webinar. Of course, we want to avoid churn and burn. We don't want to treat people like transactions. Since it is cash pay, this is built on relationships. I think we would all agree with this, regardless that it's cash pay. Relationships truly trump all. Like, we have to have phenomenal relationships with our patients. We don't want to have a volume-based business. We want to retain them and build a loyal patient base for years to come. Everything we do should be backed by intention. That, I would say, for everything we do in life in general, right? It needs to have intention backed by what our goals are of our business, Brand equity is a big thing because you really only have one shot or one first impression that you can never get back. So whether it is an online search, whether it's a phone call, whether it's the initial consultation, whether it's the first treatment or the 10th treatment, if we provide or make a mistake, or we provide a horrible experience, or someone in our staff provides a horrible experience, and it results in that patient never coming back to us, that's something that we can never get back, right? You can't get back time. And as I touched on, many are trying to get into this space right now and add IV therapy services into their existing practice models. And going back to the franchise conversation, we're seeing a lot of medical spa franchises, which there are plenty of them, adding IV therapy now into their practice models, right? So if we want to compete with that, marketing, once again, is a must. So how do we get from where we are today to where we want to be in 2023 and beyond? I can't even believe it's already 2023 and it's April, so it is Q2. So hopefully, going back to that really quickly, hopefully we had a very productive Q1. Q1, in my opinion, is one of the most important quarter of the year, because if you set yourself up for success and you have a strategy and you have a plan and you hit your goals in the first quarter, the rest of the year is going to be a little bit easier than if you did not, right? And then you have to play catch up. So here are the core 4 strategies of effective marketing. So this is what we're going to break through today. We're going to talk about connectivity, optimizing the follow-up, what KPIs should you be tracking, monitoring in your business, which are key performance indicators. We'll touch on that a little bit later. Relationships, retention, and experiences. Okay, so 2 ways to acquire a new patient in this industry, believe it or not. The first is you actually have a new entrance into the market, which means they've never done any type of IV hydration therapy service in their life before, and you capture them before your competition captures them. And then the second way is you actually steal them from someone else. So you steal them from the IV therapy clinic down the road, or maybe another practice in your local market. And if someone is thinking of leaving their current provider, let's say, where are they going to go to start researching to find a new one? It's going to be the internet. Long gone are the days where people that you can just hang a shingle up and people will walk down the street and be like, oh my gosh, this looks like a great place to go, and then stay there forever. In some cases, does it happen? Of course, that would kind of vary based on where your brick and mortar is located and the foot traffic situation, of course. But for the overall strategic plan of everyone's IV therapy business, you got to market, and specifically it has to be online, because that is where consumers go. We have our phones at our fingertips, tablets, computers. This is where we go to research. People are highly educated consumers now, so we have to embrace it and not disgrace it. So obviously a lot of things. We have email, text marketing. Well, I don't know if we're going to touch on this today. Search engine optimization and your Google business profile, we will touch on. Social, we'll touch on, and we'll do a little bit of practice website. I'm not going to go a ton into website development today, but we will kind of at a high level talk about the most important things. So search engine optimization. So all of this is what this term means, SEO, is that if I'm searching IV hydration therapy near me, let's just say, am I showing up on the first page of Google organically, right? If you're not on the first page, very few consumers, I've literally never gone to page 2 of Google. So if you're not on the first page, it's going to be a challenge, right? And there are things you can do, such as paid advertising, but that gets very costly. So I'm going to kind of talk about things that we should be doing organically that cost less money. So a couple of Google search trends I thought were pretty great and relevant to, of course, what we're talking about today. So in terms of Google Trends, so this was all in the past couple of months. People searching terms that included the keywords medical weight loss reached a 12-month high in search volume in March. Peptide therapy reached a 12-month high earlier this April. Glutathione reached a 12-month high in January, and vitamin IV therapy reached a 12-month high in March. So long story short, people are searching for keywords and services that all of us provide, or that we are contemplating bringing on to enhance our patient outcomes, to create additional revenue streams for whatever it may be. So the good news is consumers are seeking what we have, right? The $1,000,000 question truly is, how do we actually capitalize on this consumer demand that we are seeing that is consistently increasing, right? It's not decreasing, it's increasing, and we're going to see this continually increase over time. So what is today's modern elective medical consumer? What is the psychology of them, right? So let's stop here for a moment and talk about this. And I'm coming to you guys as a consumer as well. I'm a millennial consumer. I'm a consumer of IV hydration therapy and of aesthetic medicine. And I've been in the cash-based medical verticals for going on 8 years. So I come to you guys from, yes, the business side of things. I do a lot of speaking in the industry. It's something I'm very passionate about, but I also come to you guys as a consumer myself, right? And so a lot of us who are probably consumers ourselves would agree with a lot of these things. So of course you need to be easy to find online. If I cannot find you online, how am I ever going to find you in the first place? We obviously want to trust in the provider that we are going to. This really is an important aspect when we start talking about the initial consultation as well, and creating a unique value proposition for your business, selling experiences, results, and outcomes, long-term health plans, long-term treatment plans, things like that. They expect you to educate them, right? You are the expert in this case. We all know that there are difficult patients who come in and they say, I want XYZ. And maybe they don't actually need XYZ. You are the expert. You just need to know how to go about in properly educating the right way so that you can build value in the health plan, the treatment plan that they need to undergo to achieve the results and the outcomes that they are specifically looking for, right? And while that is selling, yes, I know a lot of people get uncomfortable with the term sales. So if we don't use the term sales, which I will say it's the lifeblood of any successful cash-based medical practice, we can use the term educating, or in some cases, a friend of mine in the industry calls it edu-selling, right? It's educating. So don't think of it as you're being pushy on a patient. Think of it as you're educating them to make their lives and their health better, right? You are doing them a favor. Does it cost money? Yes, of course it does, as everything is in life, right? If we want something, most of the time, if it's a service, we have to pay for it. So you have to go beyond what the cost is and sell the value. And then 5-star service, of course, right? Subpar service will consistently result in patient churn, poor patient retention, them going elsewhere to get treated and things like that. So just some things that we need to be mindful of when it comes to how consumers think. Okay, so true or false. 93% of online experiences begin with a search such as Google. I think we would all say yes, that this is true. So let's talk about the importance of your business, of your Google business profile really quickly. So when it comes to your Google business profile, because the majority of us are local businesses, right? The majority of patients are not driving 3 hours to see us, flying in from Chicago to come to our practice in Miami. Like, that's not what happens, right? It's going to be people that are in our local market. So because we are all local small businesses for the most part, of course, unless we are a franchise, but even a franchisee location, still a local business, right? So regardless of what your business is, you have to pay attention to your Google business profile. And the big reason behind this is because the majority of traffic, local traffic, is going to land on your Google business profile before they move to your practice website, right? So if your Google business profile, and we'll jump into this a little bit more in depth here in a minute, is not up to date, is not optimized, has 0 reviews, that is a problem, right? So it needs to be optimized. So reviews we're going to touch on a little bit or here shortly, because reviews are very, very important. Just make sure that, and for some reason, people assume that this stuff gets taken care of. They assume their Google business profile is always in check. And oftentimes, maybe the practice moved locations, maybe they changed their services, because your Google business profile will also display your services. If you're adding on IV therapy and you want to focus on that, maybe you put that as your first service. If the Google business profile has 2 reviews, as a consumer, that does not build trust. I always say that that is so sketchy. I would never go to a provider for anything, especially as it relates to my health, my body, if I saw that there were only 2 reviews on their Google business profile. So these are things that we need to be mindful of. Everything just needs to be optimized correctly. And this is stuff you can either have your marketing agency do, or you can go in, do it yourself. Like this, it isn't something that costs you loads of money to do. You can do it yourself for free. It takes a little time because you do want to be optimizing it on a monthly basis. I'm not going to go super granular into that today. But long story short, just make sure that you have your account set up and that it is optimized, accurate, and correct. Why? Because practices with complete optimized profiles do receive 52% more clicks. So it does have a big impact on conversion when it comes to pushing traffic to your website. And people, obsess over their websites, all about websites. It's all about websites. Like at every conference, there's a million talks on building the best website for your practice. If I have to hear another one of those talks, it's frustrating for me because it's the same information we hear all the time. Yes, your website is important. I'm not saying that your website is not important because you need to have one. Like there's no other scenario where I would say you can't have a website, but you can't neglect these other things that impact website conversion. And this is one of the biggest ones that I see neglected, and it does impact conversion to your practice website. So just something to keep in mind. So now let's talk about reviews. Reviews are big, 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 and probably one of the most neglected things in this industry, and I don't know why. And that is okay. I'm going to talk to you guys about reviews right now, obviously, because it's something I see day in, day out. I have conversations with people on a daily basis about reviews. So in today's day and age, when we go back to talking about today's modern elective medical consumer, they read reviews. How many of us read reviews? I would assume most of us, if not all of us, read reviews for if we're going to a restaurant, if we're in a new city and we want to research, hair salon, whatever it is, we are going to read reviews. And when it comes to medical specifically, that's where it becomes even more important because people are even more concerned about reviews. So 95% read reviews before reaching out to clinics, to practices. 94% have avoided a practice due to one bad review. And this is the reality we live in. So the question becomes, how do you combat this, right? The only way to combat getting a bad review is to have a copious amount of positive 5-star, 4.48, 4.8 or above star reviews, right? If we want to start talking about industry statistics, for every one bad review, you need at least minimum 17 positive reviews to level the playing field, right? So how do we go about generating positive reviews? And I'll talk about that next. But that's what we need to remember. We're all going to get a bad review at some point in time, whether it was a very difficult, crazy patient or whether it was the mistake of someone in our actual practice. It will happen for everyone. So we just need to make sure that we are proactive with it and not reactive with it. What number of reviews should you strive for? Triple digits. When it comes to, once again, consumer perception, consumer psychology, when a consumer sees 100 or above, so the triple digit number, it just builds more trust in the minds of consumers, right? If I see a clinic, a IV therapy practice with 23 reviews, 56 reviews versus 125 reviews, very, very different consumer perceptions between those two numbers, right? So if you don't already have 100 Google reviews, that should be your first benchmark. And then from there, do not stop. You have to keep going because you need to make sure that they are consistent and current. And the reason this is because if I go to your Google business profile and I'm researching IV therapy providers, whatever it is, and the last review was posted 6 months ago, does that build trust? Absolutely not. Once again, I'm going to say, in my words, that's sketchy, right? I don't have trust. I'm not going to reach out to that person. I'm going to ask myself, is this place even in business anymore? So these are things that we need to be mindful of when it comes to reviews, and we'll talk about some strategies for generating more positive reviews next. So how to improve your reviews strategy. There's two types of tactics. I call them brain tactics and brawn tactics. So brain tactics would include having some type of automation, some type of technology in your clinic to help execute automated email and text campaigns to solicit reviews from your patients. Long story short, you want it to make it as easy as possible to leave a review, and then you do want to highlight your reviews on your website in addition to Google, which you can easily just use a Google Reviews plugin or reach out to your website vendor, whatever it may be, or copy and paste them over and have a specific landing page for reviews. But when we talk about technology, okay, there are systems out there, there are technology platforms out there that you can buy and implement them in your practice, integrate them with whatever EMR you're using. For instance, you know, at PatientNow, we have an integration with a really awesome company called Swell as an example, and that's what our clients use to automate their review solicitation campaigns, specifically based on treatment or procedure received. So that's something else we do need to be mindful of. Depending the treatment or procedure received, you want to ask for reviews at different timelines. So if someone had IV therapy and they had a great first visit, that's very different than if you have other things in your practice. Maybe some of us are surgeons adding on IV therapy. If someone had surgery, the next day you don't want to ask them for a review. They're probably going to feel horrible and not be in the best mindset to leave a 5-star wonderful review when they're not feeling the best, right? So just being mindful that the software you choose needs to be able to tailor it based on treatments and procedures received. So you should be automating email and text campaigns that take them directly to your Google business profile to leave a review, because that's the platform that you want to focus on the most, because that's where the majority of consumers go. And then you have brawn tactics. So brawn tactics are a little bit more challenging to implement because they actually require people and because they require processes. So this is internally in your business. So these things, the brawn tactics, are up to you. The brain tactics are up to the technology you choose. And then of course you need to implement it and understand how to use it the right way. But once you're trained on it, it's very, very simple. First, brawn tactics is actual manpower. So train staff, talk track, setting proper post-appointment expectations during the checkout process. So is there a talk track that every single staff member is trained on, that when Susan is checking out and she just had a wonderful experience, hey Susan, we're so glad you had a wonderful, you know, experience today with Nurse Jenny. Just so you know, in the next hour or so, you're going to be receiving an email and a text message from our practice kindly asking you to review us on Google. As you can imagine, you know, we're a small local business. Our patients are the lifeblood of our clinic, and it would just mean the world to us if you would kindly review us on Google. Whatever your talk track is. Obviously, I made that up, but if you have something that sounds genuine and authentic, and you have that talk track and training in place, that this is how we're going to ask for a review. We're going to set the post-appointment expectation. We're going to tell them what they're going to expect, and they leave your clinic feeling phenomenal, and then they receive that email, text message from your clinic. They're still in a fabulous mood, and they can easily go right to Google and review your clinic. Some people think that's not going to work. Trust me, it works. We have implemented this in thousands of practices that we work with. So these are the two things that you need to focus on. So there's a technology aspect through automation, and then there is brawn tactics, which is going to fall on the leader in the business and holding people accountable to having these talk tracks, and properly setting post-appointment expectations, which would typically be done at the checkout process in most cases. And let me make sure I don't have any questions. No, okay. All right, website design really quickly. I don't want to touch a ton about this today, but long story short, you have to have a website. It needs to be mobile responsive. The main purpose of a website is, yes, it can be the most beautiful website in the world. I would never advise anyone to spend $25,000 on a website. There are many companies out there that is what they charge. I think that is absolutely insane. You do not need to spend $25,000 on a website. I will tell you that right now. You can spend much, much less than that, or in some cases, $0, depending the company that you go with. But you have to have one. But when it comes to website success, the biggest thing is that it converts. So what is conversion? Is turning website visitors into phone calls and inquiries. So web forms, web lead forms into your business. So definitely when it comes to your site, incorporate your reviews. Make sure you have landing pages for all of your treatments and procedures. In IV therapy specifically, I think it's very, very helpful to categorize not just your services, of course, but symptoms, because that is how consumers search a lot of the time. So of course, we understand what is in all of these different IV therapy drips that we offer and what they solve for, but a lot of times consumers search via symptoms or what they're trying to cure, right? So maybe you have categories like that on your website instead, where if someone is struggling with, maybe it's weight loss, maybe it's fatigue, maybe they maybe it's a one-time thing and it's hangover, whatever it is. If you categorize things by symptoms and things like that, I find that's very, very helpful, specifically as it relates to IV hydration therapy. And then a big thing is adding a personal touch with your practice and providers. Why? Because consumers want to know who you are as people. Whether you're a single practitioner or a practice with 50 employees, people want to know people. People would rather connect with people. I think we would all agree. I'd rather connect with the person than a practice logo. So, and we'll talk about social here shortly. So just make sure that you are credentialing and showcasing your people, and maybe you have a wonderful facility on your website as well, because that does go a long way. So now let's move on to social. So really quickly, and I could talk for probably 2 hours on social. I'm just going to kind of cover the main points today, and okay, so I have 35 minutes left. So first, we want to determine your target market. Do you have a specific demographic, or are you catering to everybody? In IV therapy, I would say that we have kind of a wider range than if we're talking about aesthetics. What are the goals you're trying to achieve with your social? What are we going to post? How often? What times of day? We'll talk about that, I believe. Who's going to post, right? Who's going to do your social? How are you going to measure results? And we have to adjust this strategy according based on facts, not feelings. So what's working, what's not working, and refine the strategy moving forward. Okay, so social media 101. Key is always consistency and frequency. What does this mean? You have to stay consistent and frequent with it, right? Same concept as if we're trying to lose 50 pounds or become super shredded in the gym. You can't go to the gym one time and assume that you're going to have a six-pack the next day or lose all the weight, right? You have to stay consistent and frequent with it if you want to see results, right? It's not instant gratification. It's long-term. The same concept applies to social media. So you can't do social for a week and then stop doing it for a month and then pick it up a week later and then stop doing it for a month. It's not going to work. So you have to be consistent, which is why having a plan and a strategy is something that will really, really make this a lot more helpful. I don't want to say easier. It does take time, but having a plan does make things easier, I would add. So always stay consistent with what your brand represents, how you want your brand to be perceived, of course. Don't post to post. This is a big thing. If you're going to post something, just ask yourself, is it going to accomplish one of these 4 things? So is it going to accomplish conversion, which would ideally be driving leads to your business, engagement, likes, shares, comments, things like that, inspiration, we all like that, or education, right? Education is a big, big thing because education can accomplish a lot of things in the same post. Focus on real practice and patient-centered content versus stock imagery or generic canned posts. Okay. Big thing here. Do not grab stock photos and use them in your social. Ever, 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 ever. Total waste. Total waste, especially when we start talking about the Instagram algorithm, which I think I'll talk to, because I'm going to really focus on it, more so Instagram today, because I find it to be the bread and butter. Not that you shouldn't be on other platforms. You should be on all of them. Instagram, when it comes to cash pay medicine, is really the biggest one. So make sure that your posts are real practice or patient-centered content. So your providers, your nurses, your patients, your facility, things like that, like the services you offer, the drips that the various drips you have, a provider talking about, their favorite drip of the month, whatever it may be. This type of content is what works on social and what does move the needle. What doesn't work is your canned generic post, right? So we don't want to do that, right? It's a complete waste of money. And don't hire companies that say they're going to manage your social media for you. Run away from those companies as fast as you can if you run into them at a trade show, and there are plenty of them. I'm seeing them everywhere now. How can they possibly manage your social media if they're not inside your business every day? There's no way. So they're going to charge you, nickel and dime you. It's a complete waste of marketing dollars. Don't ever do it. And they're going to be posting stock imagery. So don't do that. So what to post and where to post. So I'm not going to go and read through all of this text. You guys can obviously take photos of the slides. And I know that Ava will be providing a recording as well. So you guys can certainly go back through this and take notes if need be. I know it is a lot of content. I could talk for hours on probably every single thing I'm talking about today. But for the sake of time, I'm going to be somewhat high level and just kind of cut to the chase with the most important things to keep in mind. So when we actually talk about millennials in specifically, which is 27 to 42, wide range, only demographic that has full purchasing power than in cash pay will be increasing market share. They'd rather connect with, once again, people. So we talked about this. So long story short, incorporate your people. We actually touched on all of this as well. So videos, maybe you want to even do like team photos. Reels are great. Reels with your staff and things like that. I think we'll touch on reels towards the end. So just incorporate your people in your practice. That's what people like to see. Reviews, use your reviews on social, showcase them. I'm not going to go a ton into that. Educational driven content, nurses, providers talking about, medical directors talking about things that you have in the practice, right? We have an example right here, NAD. So aim to create a post that will inform your followers or generate saves. Saves are great for the algorithm. Easy examples, IV treatment overviews. What does it solve for? What is in it? Maybe it's staff's favorite IV therapy treatments to get and why. Like, you can get so creative with this. And if you're uncomfortable being on camera, have other people do it in your practice. But my, I guess, advice for those of you guys who are very uncomfortable being on camera is so will everybody's first time, right? Everyone's first time at doing something uncomfortable is going to be uncomfortable. However, if you push through that slight uncomfortableness and you start doing it really often, it'll become a lot easier for you. So that's my advice for those of you guys who maybe are a little uncomfortable being in front of a camera, and just use your phone. You don't need to go out and spend thousands of dollars on professional filming equipment. We all have iPhones that have phenomenal videos and cameras. There's free apps we can use to edit. So I would say all you really need to use is your phone. Okay, we had some questions. Let me go through these. Okay, so good question. The first question is, how do we gain more reviews for our company that focuses on elder care? A lot are over 70, 75. The texting or review is a struggle for them to do over their phones. So that's a great question. And here is what my suggestion would be to the person who asked this. So when it comes to Google reviews, the same IP, let's say, same IP address or Google account cannot leave more than one review. So the only way to actually get reviews is by having each individual person doing it off their own device. Now, here's what I'll add to this. Obviously, when they leave your facility, it's going to be difficult once they're gone, if they're in that age range of 70, 75, let's say, when technology, of course, is a little bit more challenging, and that's okay. So my advice would be in the checkout process or whatever it may be, whatever that looks like in your business, sitting down with your patients and being like, okay, so did you have a wonderful experience? Would you mind leaving us a review? Sit down with them. If they say yes, you can maybe send it to their phone, because it's going to have to come off individual devices is the big thing here. And maybe they tell you what to write and you write it for them and post it. That would be my best advice. Is that the most efficient? No, but when it comes to, if that is the demographic that you're treating, and when it comes to Google reviews, allowing reviews, every review is going to have to be done through a different device. So you can't have like one universal iPad in your practice and have everyone leaving reviews off the same iPad. It doesn't work. So it has to be individual devices. So I would recommend putting that in your process. You're going to sit down and you're going to help them with it. And it maybe takes 5 minutes. I think that's 5 minutes well spent. So that would be my suggestion for that question. And then comment on hiring social media manager. Yes, I will get to that around who should do your social here shortly. Yeah, do not go with third-party companies ever, and I'll touch on that too. And then someone else said who should post. Okay, so I'm going to get to staffing here in a minute, which were all the remainder of the questions. So good timing. Okay, so now let's talk about humor, right? Okay, seems silly, but it goes a long way, especially with the younger folks. So first of all, who doesn't like to laugh? Everybody likes to laugh. Laughing is the best medicine in the entire world. So incorporate humor into your social strategy. Everything doesn't have to be so like professional and picture perfect all the time. Have fun with it. Humor drives engagement. It's great for the algorithm because it does drive engagement. So be lighthearted, of course. And social, I feel like when it comes to creating funny things, humor, whether it's a meme that you make up, a meme that you share, a reel you film with your staff, these are all fun things to do. I feel like it enhances your team culture, your sense of your family, which, you know, we're all running small businesses. We should be treating our employees like a giant family where people want to come to work every single day. They're happy, you know, they feel like they're working with their best friends in the entire world. So definitely incorporate humor as well. TikTok, I'm not going to go into TikTok a lot today. I would be on it. Is it going to be the top platform for monetization? Absolutely not. In most cases, there are, of course, the outliers out there. Instagram's still going to be your bread and butter. And actually, if we want to talk about older generations, Facebook is still very effective too, because who is on Facebook? I literally never go on Facebook. I'm a millennial. I will say my parents are on Facebook. I feel not, my grandparents have all passed, but my husband's grandparents are on Facebook. So it's like that generation that hangs out on Facebook. So you can get very targeted with ads on Facebook. For millennials, I would say, which 42, 27, not effective, right? I literally don't even know how to use like Facebook anymore. If I go on, I don't even know what I'm doing. So I'm gonna, like, my bread and butter, my expertise is definitely Instagram. So Instagram is going to be, if we want to talk about generations to focus on as we move forward, as the industry grows, Instagram is going to be your top. And let me move forward. Okay, so Reels. So right now, Reels are what the algorithm favors most because they want to compete with TikTok. So long story short, and I'm not going to read these bullets, but once again, you guys can take photos of them, of course. Reels are the best thing to do right now for Instagram. Honestly, if you can, post a reel daily. And I think that they are good at team bonding and things like that. So of course, someone needs to be managing this. We'll talk about that shortly, but it's a great way for posting educational content, conversion-driven content, humorous content. The list goes on and on. So definitely focus on Reels. If you don't know how to do a reel, and Reels can be as simple as taking 5 minutes or 3 minutes to film, or maybe it does take 30 minutes, right? You can have very simple reels or very complicated reels. Those of you guys who don't know how to do reels, there are millions of tutorials that you can go to on YouTube, free platform. You can watch tons of easy how-to videos when it comes to that. And let me check the questions. Okay, we're good. So combating the algorithm. So long story short, the way the algorithm works is, let's say you have 100 followers. And the algorithm's been very, very frustrating for a lot of us who have been on Instagram over the last several years. So the way the algorithm works in the most simplest terms possible is that, let's say you have 100 followers. I'm going to use simple math. I'm not good at mental math at all. 100 followers, right? You post something. Instagram will only push it to a bucket of 10 followers first. If those 10 followers interact with it, it will push it to another bucket of 10 followers. Now, those people have to interact and engage with it to push to another 10. And that is how the algorithm works. So this is why stock imagery and stock photos do not work. Nobody cares about that at all. I would keep scrolling. I would not engage with a stock photo, right? But if it's like a really funny reel or something about providers talking about this brand new service or this brand new, IV cocktail that you brought in your clinic and what it solves for, or patient testimonial video or experiences in the clinic, those are things that are engaging, right? So when things are engaging, it's rewarding for the algorithm. So that's kind of how I would put it in the simplest terms possible. Oh, and I guess I didn't have staffing on here. So I will go into staffing right now, since I know we had a couple of questions about that. So when it comes to who should manage your social, as I touched on earlier, don't hire third-party vendors. No, 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 no. If you're at an A4M conference and you get approached by like those people wearing the weird like suits that walk around, they're like space suits, and they're like, we're gonna manage your Instagram for you. Literally run away, run to the other side of the convention center. They are total scam, in my opinion. Also, be mindful, I will say, of Instagram growth services. I think it's like the unicorns or whatever, the rainbow unicorns. I don't even know what their name is. They also walk around the convention center in unicorn outfits, and they're like, we're going to grow your Instagram for you. Keep in mind, now, does their service work? I would say it probably does work, but keep in, and all they do is log in and they just unfollow people, follow people, comment on people in your local market, things like that. But here's my advice to you guys. Anytime you give your login credentials to a third party, just know that you are adding risk to your profile, right? I have worked with many clients who used Instagram growth services and they ended up getting their profiles shut down from Instagram. Instagram recognizes when you're using a service in a lot of cases too. So if you are going to use one, I would pick the right one. Personally, I wouldn't use them, but that's really just my opinion. I think you can get phenomenal growth on social if you have a dedicated person or team doing it. It's going to have to be in your practice. I'll go into that shortly. And if there's the strategy, if you focus on reels and things like that, right? Influencers are great too. I'm not going to go into influencers, obviously, but organically doing it in-house is going to be the best way possible with the least risk possible. When it comes to who should do it, hire someone. If you are not in a place to hire someone and you are starting up and you want to keep overhead low, operate lean, of course, keep your expenses low, do it yourself is what I'm gonna have to say. And you're just not gonna have to make excuses. You're gonna have to make time, and that's just how it is. Is social media free? Yes, but your time is not. So it really bugs me when people say, oh, social media is free, it's free. Well, it's really not free, because everyone's time, if you're in this industry and you're a provider, your time costs money. So you're gonna have to make it a priority to do it yourself. When you are in a position to bring on someone in the practice, I would say that is one of the most beneficial roles that you can create in your business. Hire a social media manager, right? There are people out there, Gen Z, millennials, that, believe it or not, there are some people out there that want to work, that are okay not being remote all the time. There are plenty of people out there. Are there lazy people? Yes, sure. I know we hear all this stuff in the industry. The hiring situation has become a little bit tougher, but there are people out there that want experience. Whether you want to go to your community college career fairs, universities near you, career fairs, try to get in with the universities or the community colleges and offer internships, things like that. Whether it's internship, first-time grads, doesn't have to be a super high paid position as well. And you can get creative with the comp plan as well. And if anyone wants my advice on comp plans around social, you can reach out to me. I have some advice around that as well. So that would be my advice to you. Don't hire a third party, do it yourself or hire someone. And these three we'll go through a lot quicker because I know we're winding down on time. So long story short, when it comes to follow up, if we want to follow up with someone, we obviously, when they reach out to us, you have to get their contact information. You will not believe the number of times I have mystery shop clinics and they do not ask me for my contact information. And I'm like, oh my gosh, because let's say I hang up the phone, I call another practice, and that practice answers the phone call, gets my contact information to consistently follow up with them so that when I'm ready to come in for a consultation, where do I go? The second practice. And they may have been a worse provider and a worse practice than you. But since they did the phone call better and got my info, I go there. So little things like this can make your practice lose a lot of money, right? It's a major, major profit leak. 80% of most business is actually lost over the phone. So we need to make sure that we have processes in place and training in place on how we answer the phone. So what percentage of practices track their leads? Less than 10%. Another big profit leak we see is lead tracking. When people are calling in, when people are reaching out to your practice, you have to be tracking this. And the reason is because of lifetime value, right? So it doesn't matter that someone may have just spent $250 the first treatment. We have to look at it as lifetime value. So yes, maybe they were only going to spend $250 that day, but maybe their lifetime value was $10,000 over the next 5, 10, 15 years. So that's how you have to think about what these patient opportunities represent. They don't represent a one-time figure. They represent a lifetime figure. And why don't people track leads? These are the biggest things I hear. lack of knowledge, lack of time, lack of tools and technology. So when it comes to tracking leads, I'm a big advocate of technology, right? Technology is scalable, it's efficient. If you're in a stage of business where you are looking to exit, for some of us who may be in more mature stages of business, when investment groups, when private equity comes in and they look at your business and your valuation, having the most efficient processes in place is the best thing, right? What is efficient? Technology and software. What is not efficient and not scalable are paper charts or Excel spreadsheets. Now, if we're talking about tracking leads and you are totally anti-software and you don't want to use it, use a spreadsheet. I would say it's better than not doing anything, but you have to be using something to track your leads, right? So I had this many phone calls, I had this many forms, they were interested in this. I'm adding these people as contacts in my CRM software to automate follow-up communication to them. Maybe we track conversion, right? So we had this many leads last month, this many converted into consultations, this many converted into book treatments. So we just, long story short, you have to be tracking your leads, right? Patient opportunities in the practice. If you don't track them, how do you know what's going on with them, right? How do you know who's following up with who? How do you know how many leads you got from your Instagram in the last 30 days? How many leads you got from your organic Google search efforts in the last 30 days? You have to be tracking all of this information. Some other KPIs to track, a little unrelated to marketing, but I a big KPI person, metrics. Metrics are like something we have to measure in our business. If we don't, we will never know marketing ROI, marketing success, financial health, all of these things. So a couple of other things I would track. I'm not going to go into this today. Cancellation rates, no-shows, average spend per patient, average lifetime spend, revenue per provider, average lifetime revenue by provider, so you know what providers bring in the most revenue and what others should be held accountable to. Revenue per treatment. I would also add in profit per treatment, knowing your margins, knowing what your most profitable services are, because in some cases, your most profitable services may not be your highest revenue generating services. In some cases, when we do go to the granular level and we start talking about margins and things like that. And then of course, revenue. We have to track revenue. And let me see if we had. Okay. Our company is franchising, but has a number of corporate spas in the same state. Right now, they are housed under one Instagram account. This Instagram account also houses franchise development as well as education and brand identity. Would you recommend them? So when it comes to franchises, this is what I would do. You're going to have your main Instagram account for the franchise. So Clinic XYZ, your main franchise account, right? And then when you bring on additional franchisees and they're opening up locations, they should all have their own individual Instagram accounts, business Instagram accounts. So you're going to have the main account as well. And then every single additional franchisee location, whether it's corporate owned or it's a franchisee location, right? They should also have and be managing their own Instagram accounts. And you're obviously, if you're the, let's talk about the leadership in the franchise, there's going to have to be parameters that you set. This is the logo you have to use. Of course, if you're a franchise, you understand that. These are the social, the brand guide that you have to follow, things like that. Since of course with franchisees and franchises, it's a little bit more controlled and you have less autonomy, obviously. But yeah, I would have the main account and then every single franchisee or corporate owned location, any additional location period has to have their own account. So hopefully that answered that. All right, so next let's talk about relationships and retention. Membership programs, big fan of membership programs. I have been doing a lot of speaking on membership programs. I was actually just in Paris a couple of months ago at the MCAS conference, which is anti-aging and aesthetics, doing a whole thing, a lecture on membership. So over the last couple of years, it has really gained a lot of traction and there's a reason for it. So not only is it great for, and Forever Young is actually a franchise client that we work with, and they're aesthetics and anti-aging, IV therapy, all that stuff. So it's great for retention, per patient spend, increasing lifetime value, increasing top line revenue, increased practice valuation, better patient outcomes. I mean, the list goes on and on. I also have a whole course on membership programs, which maybe we'll do that next with Ava down the road in a couple of months, maybe do a course on memberships, because I have a whole course I do on creating membership programs as well. Really quickly, this was a case study I've been showcasing of a client, good friend of mine as well. Now she's a med spa. She has an age management side and an aesthetic side. So she has a lot, and she has capital devices. So she offers a lot. But there's only 2 main providers in the clinic. Long story short, she in last year she brought in actually $1.1 million just in membership fees alone, not treatment revenue, not service revenue, just fees from her membership program. So long story short, once you get going and you get patients on it, they are so powerful in terms of that financial standpoint. When we start talking about economic uncertainty, things like that, and everyone likes using the term recession proof. It's like everywhere now. I will say this industry for the most part is pretty recession proof if you do things the right way in your business, and membership programs are a great way to go about that. And the reason memberships are so great, and spending time with our patients is so great, building relationships, is because if we have phenomenal relationships with people in our patients in our practice, it will drive retention, and that will of course drive recurring revenue. And as we wind down here, now we're going to talk about experiences. So what is the number one reason a patient will leave a provider? It's the service and or the experience that they receive, right? If they receive a subpar service or experience, they will leave. Why? Because it's cash pay medicine. So selling the experience, when we talk about this, we always do need to talk about perceived value. So what is perceived value? So really quickly, perceived value, and this is kind of the equation I like to use, is the perceived benefit minus the cost. So perceived benefit is, I feel like if I complete this health plan over the next 6-12 months, I feel like I'm going to have so much energy, I'll have a better, sex life, I'll have a better life in general, whatever it is, I'll lose weight and feel so much better about myself, right? That's all emotional things, right? Minus the cost is the perceived value. So the thing is, and the key is, the perceived benefit needs to outweigh the cost, and that really handles how you deal with, or that really goes down to how you handle the initial consultation as well. And consumers will spend more money if they trust in the provider that they're going to get a better experience and a better outcome, a better result. So you're not selling this IV therapy cocktail. You are selling this experience, this outcome, this result that they will achieve in whatever that time span is. We're going to go skip through that one. We do also want to be mindful of having a drink the Kool-Aid culture. So you can have the best marketing on planet Earth, but if you have a really toxic, unhealthy company culture, that will impact that. Why? Because if you have miserable people in your practice, that's going to result in subpar patient experiences as well. So long story short, everyone in your practice, once you start bringing on additional team members, needs to be drinking the same Kool-Aid. It sounds kind of corny, but it is the reality, right? Your people represent your brand. Everyone needs to be on board with what your mission is, what your vision is, what your core values are in your business. You want to use those when hiring as well. Sharing success, not hoarding skills. Having universal buy-in, having a unique selling proposition is key. We'll talk about that here next before we wind down. Why? Because when everyone is growing together and aligned on the same goals, every single person is winning. So what is your USP? Okay, so defining what your USP is, and everybody needs to have one. So your unique selling proposition is what makes you different, right? So while you may be offering the same services as certain practices in your local market, you need to go beyond that. What makes you different? If you don't differentiate yourself, you will always fall vulnerable to competing on price. And there is nothing unique about being the cheapest practice in town. That's not unique, right? And that does make it more difficult to create a loyal patient base, build a loyal patient base as well. So think about what your ideal patient wants, okay, and what you do well. And that is where you find your USP. What you don't want to do is copy what your competition is doing, because that is not unique. So I do have an exercise that you guys can do. I give this to clients, but I'm going to make it available for anyone on this AVA webinar as well, so you guys can scan the QR code. If you don't have that and you want to just email me at the end, I can send it over to you. It's a PDF, it's like 2 pages, and you can sit down and do this exercise with your team, right? I would make it a team exercise if you have staff members in your practice, because you need to have I would say 1 to 2 sentences, honestly. Like if I ask you what makes you different than Joe Schmo down the road, you need to be able to articulate that in 1 to 2 sentences, and so does every single person in your practice, right? If one person can articulate it and the rest of the people cannot, then it's not unique, right? Because only that person is the person who even knows what it is. So it's not unique at all, right? Everybody has to know what it is, and they need to be able to articulate it. And then of course, belief equals behavior. So you got to believe in, as anything in life, if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't believe in your team, there's going to be problems, because belief equals behavior. Behavior affects attitudes, attitudes affect actions, and actions, of course, affect results in your clinic. So it always comes back to belief. So of course, I believe you guys can do a better job at marketing your business because you invested an hour of your time on this lovely Wednesday to attend this webinar. So I believe you guys can do it, but it doesn't matter what I believe. It only matters what you guys actually believe. So what type of practice do you want to be? What do you need to do? And when would be a good time to start? I would say today, right? So at the end of the day, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Very relevant when it comes to cash pay medicine. So thank you guys very much. This is my contact information. If you guys want to connect with me on social, I'm LinkedIn and Instagram type of person. I'm not attentive to the other platforms. My email is here. I'm very attentive to email. So if you guys have questions, shoot them over. I'm going to go through. Okay, someone said they got an error message with the QR code. If you received an error message, just shoot me an email. And I can definitely send it over. Maybe there's something down on the back end. Some weird things have been happening with our website as we've been moving some things over. So that could be the reason, or it could just be your connection. But either way, yeah, just email me. Other than that, I know the 2 questions I had that Gina sent over that you guys wrote in the registration process were, doesn't matter if you're brick and mortar versus mobile, doesn't matter, you have to market your business. The other question was, do you have any books you recommend? So on the marketing side, I don't have any specific books because marketing changes based on trends. But I have like my bookshelf of business books behind me, and the 2 I grabbed that I really like that I would recommend reading for those of you guys who have not read either of these books. These are my 2 favorite books. The first is, I'm sure a lot of you guys, I couldn't find the cover. I must have took the cover off this at some point. The first book is Good to Great by Jim Collins. I think this is one, I've read it twice. I probably should read it a 3rd time. I haven't read in a while. I think it's one of the best business books you could possibly read. And it kind of talks about what defines a good business from a great business and how you can get there. It's a very, very insightful read. He also has a second book called Built to Last. And then this is like the OG business book. I'm sure a lot of you guys have read this. If you have not, I would literally buy it today on Amazon. Is the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Phenomenal, phenomenal book. About why most small businesses don't work and what to do about it. Great read, very insightful as well. So these are my 2 favorite business books. So that was one of the questions someone asked, which no one's actually ever asked me that before. And I was like, oh, I have some on my bookshelf I actually love. So those are my 2 favorite business books I've read. And I mean, I could give a list, but those are probably my 2 favorites. So as it relates to small businesses, which all of us are. So hopefully this was helpful to you guys. And I will see if we have any questions. Okay, looks like that was all of the questions. So hopefully this was somewhat helpful for you guys, and I wish everyone hope everyone has a wonderful week. And if you guys have questions later on, just shoot me an email. So thank you very, very much.